The scream shattered the quiet suburban night. Emma froze. She had just opened the front door to check the mailbox when a shadow darted across the neighbor's yard. The streetlights flickered, throwing long, jagged shadows over the white picket fences. And then came the banging, metal against metal, loud enough to rattle her teeth. She stumbled backward, heart hammering. Her phone buzzed, a notification she hadn't sent or received. A message appeared. "I see you." Emma's breath caught. That wasn't possible. Only neighbors, kids, and the occasional mailman walked this street. But the voice behind the message felt alive, hungry, knowing. She dropped the phone. It landed face down. Her hands trembled. Then she heard it, the faint crunch of gravel on the driveway. Footsteps. Slow. Methodical. Coming toward her. And then she saw it. A figure stood at the edge of the yard. Not fully human, but not fully shadow. It tilted its head, watching her. A smile stretched across its face, wide and wrong, like it had no bone, just emptiness. Emma wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The figure started moving closer. Each step perfectly silent. And she realized the mailbox had toppled over. The metal flaps flapped in the wind, slamming against the wood. Yet nothing stirred the figure's shadowy form. It didn't flinch. It didn't react. It simply kept coming. Then a whisper, soft but deliberate. "I know your secrets." Emma's knees buckled. She fell backward into the grass, trying to crawl away. But the figure was faster than she thought, already crossing the yard with movements that didn't seem real. The moonlight glanced off its skin. It shimmered like liquid, blue and cold. Emma scrambled for the door, but the handle turned before she could reach it. The lock clicked. The door wouldn't open. Her neighbor's lights flickered. In a flash, she saw dozens of faces, not people she knew, but twisted shadows layered on top of one another, pressed against windows and doorways across the street. They were watching. Waiting. And then everything went dark. Emma's heart pounded. She was trapped. And that was when she realized the phone was vibrating again. The screen lit up, showing one single word. Run. Earlier that evening, everything seemed normal. Emma had just come home from work in Ohio. The sun was low, painting orange streaks over the quiet cul-de-sac. She waved at her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, who was mowing his lawn. Kids rode bikes in the distance, laughing. Her dog, Max, wagged his tail, oblivious to the chill creeping down her spine. The mailbox, she thought, just looked off. It had been crooked for days, leaning slightly toward the street. But tonight it looked different. The mail slot looked wider. Shadows pooled under it, unnaturally dark, as if something was crouched beneath. Emma shrugged it off and grabbed her mail. Bills, letters, junk? Nothing unusual. Then she saw the note tucked under the pile. It wasn't from the postal service. It was a small, plain piece of paper. Written in smudged ink were the words, "I've been watching." She laughed nervously. "Very funny," she muttered. But there was no one there. The street was empty. The air smelled like wet asphalt and something metallic. Her stomach twisted. Max barked. Emma turned. Across the yard, a figure leaned against the tree line. It was tall. Its head tilted oddly. Its arms were too long. The grass bent under its weight, yet she could see no shadow. She rubbed her eyes. When she looked again, it was closer. Her phone buzzed again. "Do you want to play?" Emma dropped it. Her fingers flew to the door handle, fumbling for the key. That's when the mailbox lid slammed shut by itself, hard enough to knock a few envelopes to the ground. Then the footsteps began, soft, deliberate, circling the house. Emma's mind screamed for logic, but there was none left. She turned, and the figure was gone. Then Max growled low, teeth bared, but the yard was empty. The wind picked up, carrying a whisper. "Not so fast." Emma backed away toward the porch, gripping the railing like a lifeline. Her eyes darted to the neighbor's house. Lights flickered, then went out. Mr. Thompson's yard was empty. Then she saw them. Faces pressed against the windows, Neighbors she recognized, twisted and wrong, their expressions frozen in unnatural smiles. Their eyes black pools, reflecting nothing. They weren't moving, but Emma felt their gaze pierce her very soul. The shadow moved again. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it, each step making the hair on her arms rise. Max whimpered. The wind carried a low hiss, like teeth scraping metal. Emma's fingers found the door handle again. She pulled, and it budged. Slowly. But before she could push the door open, the figure materialized directly behind her. It was real. Too real. And then it spoke, a layered voice of everyone she knew and no one she knew. You shouldn't have looked at me. Emma stumbled, falling backward into the porch steps. The figure paused, tilting its head, smiling, just long enough for her to see, too many mouths, stretching impossibly wide, each one whispering her name. She scrambled to her feet, her mind racing. The air itself seemed heavy, thick with intent. And just when she thought she might escape through the side gate, the mailbox exploded outward. Wood splintered. Letters flew into the air. Something lunged from inside it, a blur of shadow, moving faster than the human eye could follow. Emma screamed as it collided with her, knocking her to the ground. Darkness swallowed her vision, and the last thing she heard was the chilling, echoing laughter that filled the entire street. The calm suburban street from earlier now felt like another world. Every routine detail, the neatly trimmed lawns, the parked cars, the flickering streetlights, was a mask. Emma's morning had started with coffee and casual small talk with Mr. Thompson. She had picked up a package from the porch, waved at the mail carrier, and thought about what to cook for dinner. Nothing had hinted that her quiet Ohio cul-de-sac would become a theater for something unexplainable, something that didn't follow human rules. The first hours had been subtle. Shadows where none should be. A reflection that didn't match reality. Whispered voices over the phone when no one called. She told herself she was imagining it. The dog was probably reacting to the wind, the shapes just tree branches. But then the first note appeared. Then the footsteps. Then the faces. By the time the mailbox moved, Emma realized she wasn't alone, not really, and whatever was out there had been waiting, patient, calculating, and aware of her every move. The suburban streets became corridors of terror. The shadows had names. They knew her. And they were teaching her a lesson. Max barked again. A shadow moved across the yard. Closer. Faster. And that's when Emma understood. There was nowhere left to run. The wind carried the final whisper before she bolted for the door. You can't escape tonight. Emma's story is just the first of 10. By the time night falls fully on this quiet neighborhood, each neighbor, each street corner, and each shadow will become part of the collection of true spine-chilling horror stories. And for Emma, tonight, the nightmare had only just begun. Emma's heart was still hammering from the mailbox attack, but she had no time to recover. The street outside was silent now, too silent. Max whimpered beside her, his fur bristling. She peered through the front window and saw nothing but shadows stretching unnaturally across the lawns. Then she noticed it. A flicker of movement in the Thompsons' backyard. The man himself, no, not him exactly. Something like him, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, bending at impossible angles, and its head twisted unnaturally toward Emma's house. The shadow seemed aware, waiting, as if it had been watching her since morning. Emma grabbed her keys, ready to escape in her car. Max ran ahead of her, barking. The figure didn't move. It just stared, head tilting from side to side, analyzing. Then it disappeared behind the hedge. Relieved, Emma ran toward her car. The headlights flickered when she turned the key. The engine started, but the rearview mirror reflected something chilling. Dozens of faces pressed against every window of every house on the block, all staring, frozen in twisted, unnatural expressions. Their eyes were black voids. Then came the whispering. Not from the neighborhood, not from the mirror, inside her head. Names she didn't know, voices she didn't recognize. Leave now, or join us. Emma floored the gas pedal. The tires squealed as she sped past the neighbors' houses. Something, or someone, darted across the road ahead. A blur of shadow. She swerved to avoid it, heart racing. She reached the main road and noticed movement behind her. The shadows weren't just in the houses, they were following. Gliding across lawns, up telephone poles, across rooftops. Emma didn't breathe, couldn't think. She only drove. And then she saw the sign, a familiar corner store. But it wasn't normal. The lights inside flickered blue, casting deep shadows that moved independently of the people behind the glass. A door opened slowly, and a figure stepped out, her neighbor, Mr. Harlan, waving as if everything was ordinary. But his face, it wasn't his face. Every feature stretched and warped, eyes too large, mouth too wide. It mimicked his smile perfectly, but something about it was all wrong. Emma's phone buzzed again. A message appeared, this time larger, more insistent. "You can't hide here." Her pulse raced. She couldn't stop, but where could she go? Every street, every corner seemed haunted. The neighbors, the shadows, the faces, they were everywhere. And yet the streets seemed endless, looping back into themselves. No matter where she turned, Emma was still in the same block. The houses looked identical, each mailbox crooked in the same way, each window reflecting the same hollow eyes. Emma pulled over in desperation, gripping the steering wheel. Max barked furiously, then froze. Something was outside the car. She looked, but nothing was there. Then, a hand pressed against the driver's window. Thin, pale, impossibly long fingers. The reflection in the glass wasn't hers, it was the shadow figure from the mailbox, grinning with those empty, endless mouths. Emma screamed. She tried to lock the doors, but they clicked open by themselves. The figure reached for her. She slammed the car in reverse, tires screeching. The figure vanished for a moment. Then, all at once, dozens of shadows surged from every house, every lawn, every street corner, moving toward her car. Max growled, furiously trying to fend them off, but he couldn't stop them. Emma's eyes caught a sign glowing faintly in the distance. Safe Haven Shelter. She didn't know what it was, but it was the only light. She turned the wheel toward it, praying it wasn't another trap. As she drove, her car passed the yard where the shadow figures gathered. They stared, waiting, then lunged. Not physically, but something invisible slammed into the car, shaking it violently. Emma's hands slipped from the wheel. Tires skidded. The shadows hissed, whispering, echoing, mocking. Max barked again, louder, as the car jolted. And that's when the first real figure appeared inside the car, on the back seat. Its face was layered with too many human faces. They all whispered, calling her name. Its eyes were endless voids. Emma couldn't breathe. The shadows outside surged as if they were connected to it, pushing her towards something she couldn't see. Her phone buzzed one last time. The message, "You cannot escape tonight." The car screeched to a stop. Emma braced herself. She couldn't move. Max growled low, teeth bared, staring at the back seat. And then it smiled. The shadows outside froze. The car doors unlocked on their own. The figure leaned forward, voice layered and chilling. "Come with me." Emma's mind raced. Fight or flight didn't matter anymore. The night had claimed the streets. The neighbors, her world, nothing was safe. The compilation of horror she had become a part of was just beginning. She opened her eyes. Max whined, and the car door slowly creaked open. Emma's hands trembled as she stepped out of the car. The night was still heavy around her, but the faint glow of the safe haven shelter drew her forward. Max stayed close, growling low, sensing the tension. Every step toward the shelter felt like walking through a dream she couldn't wake from, a nightmare that had become real. The door to the shelter creaked open. Inside, the walls were lined with emergency lights that flickered intermittently, casting everything in a cold blue hue. It smelled faintly of disinfectant and fear. Emma thought she was safe. But she wasn't. From the shadows, a voice whispered, "Welcome back." It was faint at first, then layered with dozens of echoes. The figure from the car appeared again, stepping silently behind the counter. Its face shifted with every blink, faces of her neighbors, teachers, random strangers, smiling at her in impossible ways. Emma wanted to run. She tried to, but her legs wouldn't move. The door slammed shut behind her, and she realized the shelter wasn't just a place, it was another trap. Max barked furiously, but even he seemed to understand the futility. Suddenly, the floorboards groaned, and one by one, figures emerged from the corners. Shadows that had haunted the street now filled the shelter. Each one was more distorted than the last. One figure even wore a mask resembling Emma herself. It mimicked her every move. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another message. Time to meet the others. The shelter's fluorescent lights flickered violently. The walls rippled like liquid. Emma's heart pounded as she noticed cages along one side of the room, empty cages, but she could hear faint scratching and whispers coming from within them. Something moved inside. She backed away, tripping over Max. The figures didn't approach her in a normal way. They glided, floating slightly above the floor, forming a circle around her. One shadow extended a hand, touching the floor lightly. Where it touched, the floor seemed to ripple, distorting reality. Emma realized this wasn't just about her. The figures were absorbing fear, feeding off it, learning, multiplying. Every scream she had let out, every gasp of terror, had made them stronger. Then the intercom crackled. A distorted voice said, 10 stories, 10 victims, 10 truths. Are you ready for the rest? Emma swallowed hard. She understood now. The first 2 events, the mailbox and the car, were just the beginning. 9 more stories were unfolding, each connected to her and the others in the neighborhood. She could feel it. Those outside, still walking their streets, still peering from their windows, were next. The first shadow lunged. Not at her, but at the center of the circle. The others followed, merging into one massive shape, a whirlpool of twisted faces and limbs. The room tilted. The walls bent. The cages rattled. Whispers and screams filled the air, a cacophony of terror. Emma screamed, grabbing Max. She ran toward the exit, but the door stretched further away with every step. It was no longer a door. It was a tunnel of endless faces, each whispering secrets she didn't want to hear, each gaze piercing deeper than any knife could. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun. The shadow figure, layered with every face she had seen that night, leaned in close. Its voice, her own voice, and every voice she had heard, spoke in unison. Finish the compilation. Emma understood. To survive, she had to confront each story, each terror, each truth. She had to face them all, or the shadows would claim her, and everyone she cared about. The first cage rattled violently. From inside, she glimpsed a small figure, another victim from the first story, a child lost in the shadows, whispering for help. The figure pointed toward the far corner, where more cages were lined up, each containing glimpses of the remaining 8 stories waiting to be told. Max growled, backing up. The shadows shifted, blocking the path. The lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat, then returning with a harsh, icy blue glow. Emma realized the truth. This shelter wasn't safe. It was the heart of the nightmare, a nexus where all 10 stories converged. She took a deep breath, fists tight, and stepped toward the first cage. The shadow figure mimicked her, mirroring every movement. Whispers escalated into screams, echoes of the previous horrors blending into one unbearable sound. Emma knew she had no choice. If she wanted to survive, she had to unlock the cages, face the stories, and confront the horrors one by one. The first story's victim looked at her with pleading eyes. Emma reached out, touching the cage door. The shadows surged closer, surrounding her. The intercom voice whispered, "Do you see now? The compilation is not over until all 10 have faced the truth." Her heart raced. Her body trembled. The shadows pressed in. Max barked. Emma realized the final terror wasn't just the shadows themselves. It was understanding that there was no escape without facing every spine-chilling story. As her hand met the cold metal of the cage, she heard it, a whisper directly into her mind, louder than any voice outside. The final chapter begins. And then everything went black.